going to go to the quarterback position of guarantee producers, breakout stars and our sleepers, and disappointments and busts. You know, busts like Jamarcus Russell type of bust, you know, but here we go. Guarantee producers, those 5 guys. I mean, but Matt Schaub, question about Matt Schaub. Can he do it again? Can he play 16 games again?
I think he can. I mean, everyone has an injury risk. I guess not a huge one for guys like Peyton Manning and Drew Brees who never miss any games. I decided to put Brady high on that list just to kind of point out he's coming off a season where he faced one of the toughest schedules for a quarterback of the last 10 years. We had an article in our first magazine about that. He's coming off a torn ACL. He still had very good numbers, so he's someone out of this list I think is slipping a little too far in drafts.
Wow, that is true. And also he's playing with a chip on his shoulder as well because he has not yet to get that contract extension yet. So
it wouldn't surprise me though if that changes. Now, also looking at this list, you got to think where are people getting drafted. I think they're all about the same. I'd throw Tony Romo in there. Yet Drew Brees and Aaron Rodgers are going in round 1.
Yes. And
Aaron Rodgers' schedule gets much tougher this year. So I don't really love. I could see taking Brees that high maybe. I probably wouldn't do it, but I can accept that. To me, after Brees, they're all so close. I wouldn't take Rodgers that high. You can get Brady in round 3. I'd rather do that.
Right, for sure. Or get someone like a Flacco later on who can be, you know, while you stack up your wide receivers and your running backs, you know, definitely something like that.
It's not going to be hard to get a good quarterback. I mean, we'll talk later quickly with the breakout stars. I mean, guys out of the top 10 you can put in there each and every week.
Yes, indeed. And going to the breakout stars, Matthew Stafford, he showed a lot of leadership capability last year when he was healthy. And, I mean, of course he struggled. He's a gunslinger. But second year, more weapons around him, and Javid Best right behind him. I mean, Stafford, do you think possibly he can throw for 4,000 yards this year?
Yeah, I do, for sure. I mean, he's the guy out of all the true backup fantasy quarterbacks, guys not getting taken in the top 15, that I think could rise all the way up to the top 5. I mean, because he's got some crazy things in his favor. Okay, he's got the worst defense in the league, maybe. So they're going to throw the ball a lot. You mentioned Javid Best. They added Javid Best. They added Tony Scheffler. I'm not a huge Nate Burleson fan for the money they gave him, but he's another guy that they added to the mix. So that's a lot of weapons. And then you have a guy in Scott Linehan who's their offensive coordinator who's going to want to get vertical, throw the ball a lot. Haven't even mentioned Calvin Johnson yet. So to me, the pieces are there. He kind of reminds me of another guy on our Breakout Stars sleeper list. He reminds me a lot of Jay Cutler a couple years ago in Denver. Maybe he wasn't the best NFL quarterback in the world, but the ingredients were there to have really great fantasy seasons, and Cutler did pretty much starting in year 2, and that's what Stafford's in.
Right, that's right. And Vince Young, VY, I mean, being able to take that job back and almost leading Tennessee to the playoffs. I mean, so definitely we all know that he's a winner. So can he be able to pass for 3,000 yards and run for 500 this year?
The tougher part, I think, is going to be running for 500. That's what I'd be worried about as a fantasy owner. Not that he can't do it, but when he came back onto the scene last year, he didn't run as much as you would have wanted him to in fantasy leagues. Because he could run for 600 to 800 yards, and that would make him an every week starter, because I do think he'll throw for 3,000 yards. I really like Vince Young this year. He is in a major contract push. I think his attitude is better. Not great, but better. And he's getting older. And I like the weapons there in terms of that they're underrated. I love Kenny Britt. I think he's very talented. Nate Washington and Justin Gage are not particularly good, but they're actually better than what the Titans have had. They've been there a couple years. I actually think the receiver crew is in a better situation now than it's been. And when you got Chris Johnson distracting all the attention, you know, that helps you out.
Absolutely. And for the disappointments and busts, Aaron Rodgers, you have on the different list than the guaranteed producer. So talk about that. I mean,
well, you got to put some fun names into the bust disappointment. So I thought this would be a good talking point with Aaron Rodgers. I think he could be a disappointment in fantasy leagues because he's getting taken in the first round. I think he's going to throw for at least 3,800 to 4,000 yards. so he wouldn't be a bust. But his schedule was so easy last year. It's so much harder this year. And I love Aaron Rodgers, but I don't know if he's a first-round guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't finish in the top 5 or 6 quarterbacks just because that whole group is tight. And he's on the cover, you know, he's on the cover of the magazine, so people are expecting big-time numbers. So I just think he could be a slight disappointment from that angle.
And you mentioned Carson Palmer right here. And Carson Palmer, he has Ocho, he has T.O., he has Jerome Simpson, very underrated wide receiver himself, and Antonio Bryan as well, who doesn't really have to rush to be healthy now because they have depth at the wide receiver position. So why is he a disappointment?
Well, if you watched the Bengals at the end of last season, Carson Palmer didn't look right. His arm strength wasn't there. He wasn't accurate. He didn't look that good. I mean, I know they had bad wide receivers, but that's a factor. I think this is a run-first team with Cedric Benson. I think this is a good defense. I don't think they're going to be that aggressive. They added T.O., but I think that was just to make up for Antonio Bryant, which we don't know what we're going to get out of there. I don't know where the deep threats are. I think it's an okay passing attack, but not great. Wow. I mean, to me, Chad Ochocinco is not a top 15 receiver anymore. T.O. is not a top 25 or 30 receiver. So to me, it's just an okay group.